Today was election day in Israel, and both Benjamin Netanyahu and his opponent Benny Gantz are declaring victory. Whew, it's not just us. Elections are a screwed up sham everywhere around the world. President Trump has denied plans to reinstate separation of families at the border, but he vouched for its effectiveness as a deterrent to illegals entering the country. However, it's a little suspicious that the Trump hotel chain has just rolled out a new series of throw pillows that say, quote, "The family that gets ripped apart by the border control stays together," unquote.
Oh my God.
Earlier today, Attorney General Bill Barr told lawmakers he will make a public... Let's start over. Earlier today, Attorney General Bill Barr told lawmakers he will make public a redacted version of the Mueller report within a week, with some speculating it'll be released very late in the week in a practice that is known as the Friday night dump, a term that is also highlighted on the weekly schedule of President Trump when he is scheduled to cleanse his body of a week's worth of KFC and Diet Coke. The Trump Report starts now.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
When I set out to do that, I was like, which one's going to be less likable? And I think it's a toss-up. Welcome to the Trump Report. Speaking of less likable, I am Christian Bladt, here for another frolic through the world of President Trump, joined by Chelsea Galicia.
Hello there.
And Scott Moore at the far side of the desk. Chelsea, you missed it. Well, you missed a couple of things. You missed just a shocking revelation about Cory Booker that we'll have to get to later in the show. But the other thing you missed is we have a new feature here on the show, believe it or not. Ooh. It's called Good Week, Bad Week. You decide. So I'm going to start off and ask you. Kirsten Nielsen, good week, bad week?
Well, it's hard for me to say because I would have to understand who she is as a person, and that is really difficult for me to step into her shoes. I mean, I guess if I worked in the Trump administration and had to separate families, I would be relieved to be fired / resigned, whatever word is more accurate. Even though she resigned, she's probably more like whatever.
Well, yeah, I mean, you meet in private with someone and then you resign. But what I like are the people who did this. It was Jeff Sessions who wrote like the really bitchy resignation, like as per your request, I'm resigning. But I think that this is one of those like, so you need to resign. Am I fired? And he's like, no, I don't. I get paid every time I say you're fired, so I can't actually say it as president. So that's what we assume, right?
I mean, I have no idea. Apparently, she was fired because her plans weren't tough enough. Just wow.
Well, just imagine what she should be doing then. You know,
according to Steve Miller.
Yeah, according to Steve Miller, if she's not. If she's really not up to the task, what's on the to-do list, do you think, Scott, that she wasn't willing to do?
Well, I think it was basically going back to the family separations and you know, the asylum issues that we're having, and it was basically she was saying this is legally how far you can go, and of course Trump doesn't want to do anything that's legal. But I'm actually
be restrained by a pesky thing like the law.
Exactly, by the law and all that stuff. Yeah. I'm surprised she stayed as long as she did. My big joke was to somebody the other day is the fact that I've been telling her to resign every day for like the past year on Twitter. So she finally took my advice. So I'm very happy about that.
One day you were going to be right.
Exactly. She took my advice. So I'm just surprised she stayed as long as she did, because I feel that this has now tainted her basically from anything going forward. I'm sure she'll get a great book deal and she'll be on
I don't
Fox
know
News,
how many people will buy it. But here's the thing about this whole thing. What they're trying to fight is a force like gravity. What they're trying to do is defy laws of the universe, defy laws of actions and consequences. What we're seeing now are consequences of actions that we have taken for decades. And the Trump administration apparently thinks if you're just strong enough, hard enough, tough enough, you can stop what inevitably is going to happen. It is like saying, Scott, if you just tried hard enough, if you jumped off a building, you wouldn't succumb to gravity.
Right, you could fly.
Yeah, exactly. And so, this border problem is not Trump's making. It is our country's making over the last decades with our policies of making things so cheap for us that rips off the people in other countries, and also our desire for so many drugs that's ripping apart these countries that then their people become desperate and want to come here. I don't think that there is anybody tough enough that's going to be able to stop this force that's at work, because it's already in motion, and you can't really stop it. The only thing that they can do is try and crack down on it, but to do so will require people to break their own humanity to try and stop it. And I think it's really unfortunate that there are people who are willing to try and do that. I think what we should be doing is really trying to solve the root of the problem. And yes, it's not Trump's problem, and he doesn't want to deal with this, but that's the thing of the president, is that when a problem comes to roost on your watch, you've got to take care of it, even if it was not your fault. Even if he's right and he's not, that Obama caused this. It's still right now, the problem is happening right now on his watch during his administration, and it's up to him to fix it as humanely as possible. And I guess he's only concerned with the humanity of his base. But what they don't seem to understand is that we, the United States, have caused the circumstances, and we continue to cause those circumstances. If everyone quit their drug habit cold turkey, I mean, that would be a huge break probably in what's happening. But we as Americans refuse to do that. So we just have to deal with the consequences of our own actions. And yeah, it's going to be expensive, and it's going to create a mess. This is really a mess. But this is what we signed up for with all those years of policies.
I noticed that when you said we need to quit our drug habits, you looked right at Scott. And Scott, this is an intervention. This whole show has just been a ruse all along. We're finally here to let you know that we care about you, but you have a problem.
We love you so much.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think that a policy change, even drastic ones, aren't going to improve the situation in the short term. And to extend sort of the theme of good week, bad week, the Department of Homeland Security as a whole, I guess all these people who are, getting fired, it's the same thing. You can be like, well, are you like disappointed that you're out of a job, or are you like, oh, thank God I don't have to, be on the front lines of this fight that clearly I don't want to be a part of. And by the way, somebody like Kirsten Nielsen, that book will probably sell pretty well, because she's going to know like one or two things that she'll allude to that as soon as people find out they're in it, there's enough pundits who need to read the book that it could just become a bestseller based on that. If you just think of all the cable news channels, just all these people are going to need to read the book. So I feel like all she has to say is like, yeah, I didn't want to do any of this. It's like, I didn't want to do it. I was made to do it. And she'll say that I resigned because I wouldn't do, she's going to, somebody's going to call her a hero within the next calendar year.
Yikes.
Jeez.
Just putting it out there. Just like you trying to tell her to resign every day.
Well, it worked.
If I say everyone who resigns from the Trump administration will be considered a hero at some point, Omarosa, I'll probably be right. So yeah, I mean, we don't need to go through the personnel. I mean, I barely knew who she was, but there's well, really, I mean, it's like I knew the name, but that was one of those, like, if I was on Jeopardy and I had to name the Department of Homeland Security before today, I would be like, oh, there's like a weird J in it that doesn't belong there. But I'm sorry, Alex, I just don't know. So I don't know. I mean, this seems to be what the administration wants. It's like not just specifically this. If you go through the different positions throughout the government, there's a lot of acting, and well, first of all, I mean that in a literal sense. There are a lot of people who are acting and pretending that they care, they have souls, they have hearts, all that, and that's a bipartisan.
I'm glad that you said that.
That's a bipartisan thing, by the way. Wow. I'm just saying that to be a politician, you have to basically you're signing a deal with somebody. Let's just say. So, but I think that. I don't know, what possible benefit could there be, I'll ask you first, Scott, to not having somebody actually in these roles? So when you just appoint someone as acting, they're not subject to the same scrutiny and any kind of hearings. Now, obviously, whoever the next down from her is on the list, there was some kind of confirmation. But I don't think you go as strictly through,
that person is also left.
Right,
So
that's
now
what I mean.
Yeah,
So
it's the
like,
person
so it's like
below
the
that
fourth
person.
one down.
Yeah.
It's like governor of Virginia. Nobody thinks to even check the third guy down on the list because who needs to know what he's up to? So there's no way there's going to be two guys in blackface pictures in their college yearbook. So no, we don't need to look. But I don't know. Do you think that's? I tried to answer my question, but do you think that that's what it is? Is that the benefit to having all of these? I could try to find the list, but there's so many people that aren't actually appointed to the position. They're acting,
Right.
Head of Homeland Security, for example.
Right. I mean, it's part of the MO of Trump and this administration is to continue to work in chaos and disarray, and it's he, especially the agencies he doesn't like very much. He wants them to kind of suffer. Department of Homeland Security is different. It's like the third biggest, maybe even bigger than that now.
240,000 employees.
It's such a huge department that this will be something they'll need to fill quickly, and not have an acting person in. And I think their thought is that I've heard Chris Kobach's name has been floated around, which couldn't even win his home state as a Republican gubernatorial candidate. So that tells you again the type of people that are drawn to this administration and this president. I think Trump believes, and Stephen Miller thinks that if you can get someone in, like going back to what you're saying, that's tougher, that somehow, or maybe more loose with the laws, that somehow, this is going to stem the flow of the migrants heading north. But there's bigger problems there, as Chelsea was mentioning earlier. And even if we look at the numbers, they're still less than they were in the 90s and the early 2000s of people coming over. They're coming for different reasons, and most of them are, in the 90s and early 2000s, you had a lot of immigrants coming in because they wanted to work. Now it's people that are actually coming in to escape political violence, which are things that, like you were saying, Chelsea, that we helped cause and fuel down there in Central America. So they're coming for different reasons, but the numbers are still lower than what they were in the 90s and early 2000s. And we see a president exacerbating these problems instead of solving the problems. And that's why you were having these issues with the judge had mentioned about, you can't have them stay in Mexico when they're seeking asylum, and other issues that are going on that they are making worse and not better, which they could be making better.
You know what I hear on Fox News about this is that this issue is making it harder for Americans to be seen in hospitals, and it's causing overcrowding in schools and all of this. Has anybody thought that we could maybe just build more hospitals and more schools and more resources? It's not like we don't have the money.
Well, that goes back to the infrastructure thing too, which is a whole other issue that they keep talking. They want to build infrastructure, but then they never do. So.
Yeah, but isn't it easier to just build a wall? I don't understand why you would build a hospital when you could just build a wall. I don't know if I follow.
I wonder how many hospitals and schools and all of that could be funded with the money that Trump wants to spend on a wall.
Well, and just think about how much easier it would be to get into those hospitals if Obama didn't give all these illegal immigrants Obamacare. So that's really what the problem is. That's why.
And you know what? I can also see people are resentful. Americans are resentful. I work so hard, and then these people just come in here and then they get all these benefits. Okay, I can hear that. Well, why don't we just give whatever those benefits are to everyone? Because reality, I mean, they're given some, some medical care, basic medical care. We should give that to everybody rather than say they shouldn't get it. We should just be giving it to everybody. And there is a way to pay for it. Part of it would require that we actually crack down on the crazy costs of medical and health care to make it more feasible. But that's a whole other issue.
That's a whole. I mean, that's one of those. On the micro level, you can appreciate how crazy the healthcare costs are. Just a simple thing. If you're lucky enough to have health insurance, and it's like, and you have to fill a prescription. Every once in a while, they're like, you have insurance, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, I do. Oh great, so it'll be $10 instead of $400. And it's just like, I don't even understand how that works. I mean, I do. I understand the concept of price gouging and all that. But Scott, what you were talking about before, just sort of, there was always this idea that, America was built on this idea of, people come here to pursue the American dream. But I think now it is a lot more of people are coming here because they're getting away
They're
from.
trying to escape their
They're just
nightmare.
getting to a place where they're like, I think I can stay alive there. You know, if the geography, this is a hypothetical, you know, in a fantasy world, if the geography had it where north of Mexico was, I don't know, Beirut or the Democratic Republic of the Congo, they'd be like, yeah, well, I want to go there instead of where I'm coming from. I'm safer there than I am in the country
And
that
if
I'm
we
leaving.
want to make those other countries safer, has it ever been floated that we go down there and try and help crack down on the drug gangs that we're fueling, that we help provide safety there? I mean, I don't know how much the governments would want us to kind of go in and take over.
I mean, that's what we talked about last week or the week before, about the fact that Trump was cutting off aid to those countries, and we were mentioning that that's basically doing the exact opposite of helping stem this crisis, because now you're cutting off the aid and helping these governments be able to fight crimes and certain other things, and you're making it worse again than not better. And so you're allowing more people now to be in a dire situation where they have to
Right. Well,
escape.
we could do aid differently if it would be possible for us to go down there. And I don't like the idea of like military going down. I like there like of some kind of armed peacekeeping mission to help defend these people in their villages who are in fear for their lives. You know, I know this is, you know, different thinking that I've heard, any ideas on any media channels that I've seen, but why are we just so focused on this? Just like create a barrier and then pretend that the problem is not ours and that we have nothing to do with it and we don't care about the other people.
And the problem doesn't exist anymore because we put a so-called barrier up, that now a barrier is going to solve 100% of issues that are going to happen. Yeah.
I feel like there's just so much money in the drug trade in general. I'm not naive enough to think that money doesn't find its way, just the money itself, you know, the bribes and all sorts of, I'm using air quotes for those not watching YouTube, donations, that no one will ever, not no one, but enough people won't ever seriously take it on, because I'm not even talking on the small level, you know, like governors and mayors, you know, in border states. I'm just talking about just the high level decision makers. It's like, oh, well, I guess if I have, you know, $1 billion donated to, you know, to my party through a bunch of different shell corporations, I guess I'm not that interested.
I mean, the idea is that like if we give aid, we give money. But what if we were to do something like an organization that I volunteered with it, which is they go down to Guatemala and they take tourists like myself to go spend a week at a time helping the community itself build schools. You know, build schools, build homes, build roads. Would probably need some level of protection, but in fact, when we go down there, I think that we're protected, because even people involved in the drug trade know that we're coming down there to help their families, their people, their communities. And so, you know, there's never been a history of a problem in the 100 plus schools that this one organization that's run by like 4 or 5 people has been able to accomplish. I mean, if we took that on as a country, and now I'll hear people say, well, but our own schools here are falling apart. We need to take care of our own. Yeah, I think we can do both at the same time.
I mean, we could, but you know what's easier? Just not doing either. And I think that's where we're at. You know, Chelsea, you mentioned Stephen Miller before. Do you think he's a white nationalist? Because Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, I like to say, she used those exact words. So before we talk about other words that maybe she's used, where, you know, maybe you don't want to call attention to somebody's racial profiling, what do you think? Do you think that that's I'm not asking if you like him. I'm asking if you think that that's a fair assessment.
I think that there can be an argument made that he is, but I think that we waste time in having the debate. I'm not sure how much she's helping the cause by creating that as a thing to focus on. If everybody were talking about how can we fix the root cause of all this, you know, I don't think that the name calling is helpful. You know, yesterday I tried what I do every couple of days. I switch over to Fox News and try and listen to understand what points and what's their perspective is. And I just heard somebody over and over say, Bozo O'Rourke. And I'm like, I just can't take these people seriously. I can't take anything that they say seriously when they include name calling like that. don't think that we should spend the time talking about it. If that's how she feels, it's fair. I don't think it's totally crazy, but I just don't know if it helps. And I wonder, and maybe she knows more than I do, if there's really a strategy behind that demonizing somebody who actually may very well be a demon, but I'm not sure that we need to spend time highlighting
at the very least, anybody who's seen him, he's at least an alien. I mean, we busted out of Area 51, and we can go from there. But I don't know, Scott, do you think that there is something to be said for name calling and sort of that level of discourse is kind of all that gets attention anymore?
Well, that is the sad thing I was going to say, and I do agree with you, Chelsea. I wish we didn't have to go to that point now, but Trump has made it into an art form, as he did in 2016 and continues to do, and other people are trying to use the same strategy. I don't think it works as well.
I think we should not do, I mean, I don't generally agree with the when they go we go whatever, but I just say we have to just stop playing on that playing field. And it also made me think we just need to stop, I think, Democrats going on Fox News. Like, would any self-respecting person go on Alex Jones's show? No, it's just so wacko crazy. You can't take any part of it seriously, so you shouldn't go on the show and try and
except for the lizard people. They are infiltrating our government, and they are very likely going to take over. I need to go on record.
But no self-respecting person should go on that show to even try and argue against it. You're just arguing with like Jello.
Not now that no one can see it,
right? But I think based on what I heard yesterday on Fox News, that it's the same level as Alex Jones. There's so many, lies and just wacko craziness that you cannot take any of it seriously. And I think that we should all stop taking it seriously. I mean, I'm having a hard time using it as a place to try and understand what the other side says, and they're supposed to be, as I understand it, sort of the voice and conscience of the other side.
Chelsea, as President Trump is well aware, Fox News Channel's morning show is called Fox and Friends. Are you the N Friends that they're talking about now? It seems you watch a lot of Fox News at this point.
I am not. I've actually not watched Fox and Friends.
It's on a little early here on the West Coast, but let's be honest.
I tune into some of the afternoon shows. And
Shep Smith?
Yeah. And sometimes if I can't, like Tucker Carlson, and Hannity, I'm trying.
Oh,
I know.
I'm give you points for that, because Shep Smith and even like Neil Cavuto I could kind of deal with, but
I'm trying, and it's just wacko central.
I almost feel like now, here at AfterBuzz and on the Popcorn Talk Network, they do what they call watch-alongs. It's usually for a movie. But I almost feel like we need to somehow figure out a way to get an actual Alex Jones show, and then the three of us will just sit, or, if Tamara's around, we'll all sit and we'll just watch it and just comment live as we're watching it. But again, I don't know how you find Alex Jones shows anymore.
I don't either.
Yeah.
But
he used to be on the radio at some point in his career.
Remember that show on MTV that used to play a music video and then had facts pop up?
Do you mean pop-up video?
I think that
was from VH1, but
okay, sorry.
It was that's
sorry, VH1.
No, but that's the best kind of television because you can't look away.
But can we do that during Fox News? Like you replay
and then you're like putting the real facts.
Actually pop up.
I think it's easier to do it more like a director's commentary, like DVD. You know what I mean? Because I think that getting the pop-ups, it's like you have to make each of those graphics, and
it would be a lot of
there might be a lot of pop-ups.
Just cover the whole screen.
And listen, I get that, CNN, they say it's just as bad. I get that there is bias in CNN. I totally can agree and get that. But when I listen to Fox News, I hear just straight up lies. And
well, that's the whole joke
falsities.
on SNL. They'll be like, "Oh, and here's our corrections," on Fox and Friends in the morning.
Oh yeah, they'll just scroll
all this
through
stuff up about the.
Yeah.
But thank you for the kudos on me trying. I'm trying to more understand.
Well, and you're not even watching the shows that are the news shows.
Yeah,
you're
like
watching
the lighter show. That's what I'm
opinion
saying.
shows.
Yeah.
That you're like wading in.
Yeah.
Sometimes if I'm driving and because I've got my satellite radio and I can flip over to Fox News, it will just be during the newsy part of the Fox News. So I try and hear it at all times, except Fox and Friends. That's a little too early for me.
Yeah.
Yes, no, that's...
there's not enough coffee that I can have at that time of the morning to be able to get through that show.
That's where we're at on that. I don't know. I think that there's something to be said for, in this day and age, name calling is the only way to
Well,
really...
it kind of rises to the top. It frosts up your particular base. It gets people riled up. I don't agree with it, but I can see how that's used as we saw so successfully by Donald Trump, and now others are trying to emulate it. So back to that of why people can do that, because it's good for sound bites.
But what I think people don't understand about the name thing is that he did it repetitively, and that was a way of kind of trying to, I don't know, like...
You mean like Crooked Hillary?
That to seep that into your consciousness. So if we just throw out random names at people, that's not using the names the same way that the Trump psychology uses them to try and kind of...
I don't know. I look for more creativity than Bozo O'Rourke. I mean, that's, I don't know. There's I get it. It's the structure, the amount of consonants, but I think even Trump would be like, no, that's not a good one. That's not one of those like, hey, I got a bunch of secret nicknames and I slipped them to my friends over at Fox and Friends. So also,
those are his B and C list names, though. Those are the ones that didn't make his cut, so he gives them to...
Well, and he's always dedicated. He won't back away from even the ones that are clunkers, the bad nicknames. He just sticks with them, I don't know. Look, it works.
It works for brainwashing.
There's
if you are susceptible to that. So our work is to try and make people identify that, like, no, that's not cool. That's not okay. And I'm not going to start going along with it.
Yeah. Look, somewhere around 40% of voters are okay with all of it. I mean, somewhere between 40 and just under 50. I don't quite know where it is, but I did see the latest poll numbers. 53%
from Rasmussen. Of course.
Yeah. Well,
the only one he posts.
Well, I mean, what? I'm sorry. Do you want him to post polls from the failing New York Times or the Jeff Bezos divorce, Amazon, Washington Post?
What does that have to do with anything?
Well, that's going to be the new name. It's the Amazon Washington Post, but now he's going to be...
Trump is going to try and
he's going to get
clown him for divorce when he's like got several.
Hey, he didn't have to give up.
75% of
25% of the stock, and I forget now what is it? I think I heard $43 billion. And I don't think Trump ever had a settlement. Marla Maples didn't get $43 billion.
Well, because he doesn't have that much anyway, so.
So says you. If
he did, wouldn't he have his tax return out the first day, just like the Mueller report? Wouldn't he have it out if he had nothing to hide and he said, I'm a multi-billionaire?
Yeah, I mean,
come on.
I wasn't planning on talking about that right now, but here's the thing. That's in the news a lot again. And, Mulvaney's like, they're never, he said on, not Fox and Friends, Fox News Sunday, he said on Sunday, is like, the Democrats are never going to get it.
Only Republicans are going to get it? Is that what he was trying to say?
Well, the Democrats are the only ones that really want it.
Right.
And, my thing about that is I've always been interested in it in the way I would about any public figure. Like if Harrison Ford didn't want to show us his income tax, I'm like, well, now I really want to know
exactly
how much he made for Star Wars Episode 7 and Indiana Jones 4. These are all things that I want to know. But I think I don't know, just the way that I think of somebody like Donald Trump is there's not some like dastardly wrongdoing that can be found in there because he's got creative accountants. I think it's embarrassing how little like liquid cash he actually has on
probably
hand.
Debt.
Yes.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of debt, and I think that's why he doesn't want us to see it. It's the same thing as. I believe we haven't seen his grades, even though I remember before he wanted Obama's birth certificate, he wanted Obama's grades. So these are all things that I want to see just because he doesn't want us to see them. I don't think that it's going to change anything in the world, but especially tax returns. I'm like, there's something good in there. And,
of course.
And, it's like, how many deductions does he have?
Right. And that's exactly what we talked about.
Probably doesn't pay any because he claims a lot in debt.
Because he claims a lot in debt and he doesn't have the money that he claims that he has. And that shows that he's not a successful businessman, which we've talked about since day one, going back to the 2016 campaign, which is the whole reason why he doesn't want to release them. Because he knows it makes him look bad, and his con man self is being unwrapped by seeing this tax
I
return.
I didn't know who associated with him. You were calling a con man. I was like, wait, this might be a while. What were you going to say, Chelsea?
Well, remember that there's a lot of, like career criminals, the mob and all, these people. They're not brought down for, murder and all that kind of stuff. They're brought down.
Yeah, what brought down Al Capone? Well, besides syphilis.
Taxes.
Yes.
So, yeah, that I think he probably has some idea that could be the beginning of his downfall.
Yeah, and also the people who want it are people that he doesn't like. So it's like, no, I don't. I mean, he said on the campaign, obviously this is reported a lot, but that he was currently being audited, and as soon as the audit was over, he turned. That's a long audit. I mean, I'm just like, wow.
Which of course is also not true, and the IRS has even said that you can of course show your tax returns when you're under audit.
Yeah.
It's like. The fact that he blatantly lies and he's been able to continue to get away with it is just it's comical now. If it wasn't so sad, because this is supposed to be the president, and I put in quotes for people listening.
Yeah, I forget who an article I read last week was saying that Trump does it just because he finds it entertaining how upset people get about his lies. And then he just does it for entertainment.
That might be the only thing I like truly like about him is how much he enjoys driving crazy the people who hate him. And like when he does those press conferences where he actually takes questions for an hour and 15 minutes, and he'll take CNN's questions, and it's just like. It's like that's him in his element, and that's fun to watch. Him at the rallies isn't that fun for me. But I think that when he's just really, when he's trying to make people in a room feel the way he did at the White House Correspondents' Dinner in 2011, when, not just President Obama, but Seth Meyers, who he still talks about, being one of the least talented comedians because of just how he was eviscerated by him. I mean, you weren't even eviscerated by the guy who's on at 11:30. You're eviscerated by the guy who's on at 12:30. Nobody can be bothered. So, he wasn't on late night at that point. He was still on SNL, but it's just jokes.
I mean, this is the one who gets bullied. Turns around and is a bully.
I wanted to talk about what's going on over at the Secret Service. The director. Love these names of people, and I'm assuming this is someone who predates the Trump administration, but there's always nicknames. The director, Randolph D. Tex, and it's pronounced, well, it's spelled Alles, but that sounds like Ailes, and I'm like, wait a minute. Is this Roger Ailes in just like a Halloween mask? He is out as the head of the Secret Service, and I think that the Secret Service ought to be one of those institutions that's viewed as nonpartisan, that you need them to do their job protecting everybody that they're assigned to. Yes, even Eric Trump, because you want them to give the same level of care to Sasha and Malia, Chelsea Clinton, Amy Carter, I can't think of anybody else. Ron Reagan Jr., all right? See, there's somebody else. Although I don't actually think he had Secret Service detail. No. But the point is that, when there's any kind of turmoil in an organization like that, you're like, well, you really hope that they can actually, get their job done, and they're actually keeping people safe. Obviously everything is just insiders and anonymous quotes, but people seem to be glad that that this guy is out. Trump wanted him out, and he used to make fun of what he looked like, and he would call him Dumbo. And again, that goes right back to this. This is the level. It doesn't even matter what he did on the job. He just didn't like the way he looked, and he's Dumbo. Because look, when you're as handsome as Donald Trump, you can obviously comment on the looks of anyone, but I don't know. When you hear anything like this, Chelsea, and again, it's less about this specific firing. Do you at all worry about this agency that's supposed to be keeping our elected officials and their families safe?
For some reason, I don't know why, but I'm not worried. I don't know why, if I'm supposed to be worried. It is a little bit bizarre about that woman who got in with the thumb drive.
I wanted to transition to that.
Phones and the cash
and if it was found that was a really big breach, which it sounds like it was, but although I don't know that much information about it, and this guy failed to do his job well, then, he's got to face the consequences that all of us have to face if we don't do our jobs well, and
Except
we
for
get
Donald
terminated.
Trump.
Right.
We'll see. We've got an election
there's a
coming
different
up.
standard, right, Scott? There's like doing your job well,
Right.
and then there's Trump thinking you're doing your job well.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I also think the thing that we forget about is the Secret Service does a lot of other things. This is only part of their scope, is actually, protecting people. They deal with counterterrorism and counterfeit things and a lot of stuff that goes on around the world. So it's only one part of their overall job.
If you post a threat online, where you say, I think somebody should do something to someone, and I'm going to keep it very vague, the Secret Service shows up at your house and wants to talk to you about, they're going to gauge the level of, the threat, or is this just somebody being a jerk online like everyone else? So, I think that, it's like one of those things where I feel like the CIA, it's like, we're not going to know most of the stuff that they do, and we shouldn't know what they do, because that means that they're doing it well. But I don't know. I think that the fact that President Trump seems to have a problem, who does he actually like? I don't even think he likes Jared. I think he likes Ivanka, but that's in all the wrong ways. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that he likes anybody, and I think that
It's hard to like anybody else when you don't like yourself.
Now, see, that's true. I'm fairly sure he doesn't like Pence, but he just sees Pence as like the least threatening guy,
Well, he needed the evangelical vote,
right, and so that was his
for him.
Exactly. That was his gift for that.
Can we talk about Pence and Buttigieg?
Is that how you say it?
It is. I believe so. That's
Scott. I'm gonna get a second ruling on that. But he usually goes by.
I want to hear you say Buttigieg and Klobuchar and tell me which one you think is harder to say.
Buttigieg, because I'm still not sure that that's right. And by the way, look, the fact that we live in an age where we have an openly gay candidate at this point, I think is great. But the fact that we live in an age where you can't even make a joke that the first 4 letters of his name is butt and he's gay. You just can't. And I'm just like, come on.
It never even occurred to me.
Well, that's why I'm here. But it's an
what would I
interesting...
do in my life without somebody?
I know,
like
right?
him?
I don't know. Just think about
things.
We've known each other almost 3 years now. Just think about how much more elevated your thinking was before you did this show with me.
It's true.
But he usually goes. What does he like to go by? He go by. He just goes by Mayor Pete. Yeah, and that is going to look better on a bumper sticker, Mayor Pete. But I think that it's interesting because. He had these. Well, why don't you react to it? What he said about Pence?
Yeah, basically saying if he has a problem with my gayness, he should take it up with my creator. Is that basically a good?
Yeah, the idea that you should be angry that God made people gay.
Yeah.
But somebody like Mike Pence doesn't believe that. I mean, and like, okay, let's just say a lot. I don't even want to say that he's ever actually said that out loud or on record. But a lot of people think that it is a choice, that God doesn't make you that way. So I'm going to assume that Mike Pence doesn't actually believe that.
I think when you have more and more respected, leaders who say, this is how I was created, you know, when people say that over and over and they have credibility, then at some point, enough people will understand that to be true.
Yes, I think that the way that the way that the world should be, the way that rational minds should reach conclusions, absolutely. I just think you still have a lot of people that don't see it that way. Sometimes
we know that some people only understand things to be true once they've heard them like a million times, which is part of why Trump says the same things.
No collusion. No collusion.
Hoax, witch hunt.
Right.
Build the wall.
Lock her up.
Yeah,
yes.
All those.
By the way, Hillary's still not in jail. I just wanted to point out.
Take it up with
Hillary's
my
still not in
creator.
jail,
That's like, another thing that if it's said over and over enough, people will begin to understand. And they hear it from different people who say that, and they hear it over and over enough, more people will understand it to be true.
Well, that's what I said. I jokingly had posted on Twitter to Mike Pence's account, like, oh, there's only one real Christian politician from Indiana that's, going into national politics, and hint, it's not you. Because it's true, because what Mayor Pete is saying is the real Christian values, as opposed to the Mike Pences of the world saying that it's the opposite. And I think on one hand, I get a little bit, when we should be having separation of church and state, but at the same time, I think it's important for maybe some people that are more progressive that still have religion and find that important to be able to express that.
Well, he's not trying to legislate based on it,
right?
So there's no
exactly
going.
So I think it's important.
Yeah.
And I think it was kind of an edgy thing to say too. I was like, hey, it's not my thing. Take it up with the creator kind of thing was a kind of a more like in your face response, which I thought was really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think more and more people are appreciating some of the things that Mayor Pete is saying in his run for presidency, and I hope that he continues to gain steam and be a major player in this primary.
And I mean, I think that it's a great way to sort of diffuse that issue, because you're just saying like, yeah, I mean, this is who I am, and I think to what Scott's saying, it's not a very Christian thing to hold that against people, just that they are who they are, because I don't know. I mean, I went to Sunday school. I was raised Lutheran, and and I've also seen Jesus Christ Superstar. So the Jesus that I know isn't like really this judgy, I mean, he's like, oh, this guy, this guy's gonna totally sell me out, and you're gonna lie about me on the stand. But I still love all these guys. I love all these 12 losers who are hanging out with me. I love all of them. So that's a fairly inclusionary outlook, but I don't know. I guess it gets lost in the translation somewhere. And by the way, Mike Pence has just the very Mike Pence response, and this is not a literal quote, but it's like, what happened, bro? It's like, it's more like, I thought we were cool, man. And it's like, no, obviously we're not. And that's probably the problem with somebody like Mike Pence, just not realizing that when you're so firmly associated with a specific viewpoint, that it hurts a lot of people who, that they're the ones that you're speaking out against.
Well, and he always will be. There's no way he can get around it from his past as governor, but even back in again when his wife is now working for that school. So I mean, he's never going to be able to.
That's his brand.
Yes, he's never going to be able to disassociate himself from that, no matter what he does. If he turned around tomorrow and did whatever, I guess short of saying he was gay himself and that he was punishing himself because he couldn't deal with it, I don't think there's any other way that he's going to...
Just imagine that, by the way. Imagine getting that interview. And you know who'd get it? Gayle King. Because Gayle King gets...
Oprah.
No, but Gayle King gets to talk to everybody right now. It's like...
Well, because Oprah's like, I'm too busy right now.
She's way too busy, yeah.
Give it to Gayle.
Gayle can talk to R. Kelly.
You can handle this, yeah.
In our final moment here, we have another entrant in the Democratic sweepstakes, let's say. Representative Eric Swalwell.
Yes.
That's actually not that hard to say. I just like to pretend that I can't say any of them. But I don't know. Don't we have too many already? I mean, I guess if you feel like you need to run for president, but
too many is a question of do you have different ideas? Like,
I think really,
some people have, I'm actually looking forward to this Sunday. CNN is having a town hall with Andrew Yang. He's the one who's running mostly on the idea of universal basic income.
And even Republicans are really fascinated.
He's one of those
him.
guys. I'll let you finish your thought. He's one of those guys that people are like, oh yeah, I really like him, but he'll never win. And a lot of people are very dismissive at this point. And it's like, well, this is the point where you can listen to someone like that.
Yes, and he himself has said, if there is somebody, a candidate who wants to run with this, message, who understands this and who wants to address this, then sure, I don't have to be the guy. But this is what's going on, automation and this is how we can fix it. And so when it's a question like that, somebody coming in with great, fresh ideas that we need to debate as a country, I don't think we're too full.
And then you can incorporate that into later on into a general.
I don't yet
candidate.
know if Eric Swalwell is bringing something new. At first I didn't think that so much of Mayor Pete.
Same, yeah.
But, I was like, oh, here's another white guy.
Yep.
But
and
Mayor
he's
Pete,
too young. And I'm like,
but
kind of
actually,
dismissing
I'm
him.
like, way in love with him now.
Yeah,
no matter
same.
how far he gets,
Yeah.
I believe that he should be in this race.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, I think a lot of them are going to fall off once we start getting into more of the debates.
Yeah.
And obviously, once we get to the end of the year and then get into a real primary series, you're
like
going to see
even
those
Cory
single-digit
Booker.
candidates going away.
I'm so glad you mentioned Cory
quickly.
Booker. Go ahead, finish your
But
thought.
I'm saying,
'cause we do
Cory
have to go.
Booker wasn't doing so well.
Yeah.
Now, he may be, presenting something like this commission to study reparations. That
and
is
the baby
not necessarily a
bonds
fresh
and-
idea, but that's an idea.
But
that
bring
has
it back out and helping to extrapolate a little bit more of the idea and what would go into
So that
it, like
makes
the
me
baby
glad
bonds.
that he's in the race, even though I don't necessarily believe that somebody from California, New Jersey, or New York is the best candidate for us.
Well, I think, Scott, obviously the real problem for Cory Booker is he will continue to be dogged by the allegations that he's a necrophiliac, which we heard about last week. We couldn't believe that it's not a bigger story. It's been running through everywhere, and I can't
Everywhere.
believe... Yeah.
How is it that I read and I think I read a
Were
lot?
you here last week?
I was not.
So you missed it.
This is your invention. Your
No,
creation.
we report,
We
they
heard.
decide. We
Yes,
report,
we heard.
they decide.
We were hearing
so
things.
Come on, you
We'll
guys.
let you know what we hear.
No, this is really.
Hey, I didn't say it. Tamara's not here, so you'd have to ask her. Anyway, we are out of time.
And that is not true.
But I don't know. I don't know anything about what the man's up to. But
guys
we'll be
are
back
nuts.
next Tuesday at 4 Eastern. No, 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern. And until then, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Christian DMZ. Chelsea, where do people find you?
At Chelsea Galicia.
And Scott, where do people find
You
you?
can find me at SMan80, probably talking to Mitch McConnell, waiting for him to respond back. Kirsten Nielsen obviously
Can you
resigned.
encourage him to resign? Oh my God.
I would love
Can
that.
you
Every
imagine?
day.
Maybe every day I should start posting that instead of calling him a hypocritical turtle. But
Thanks so much for everybody in the chat. Glad to see you back, Storage Yard resident. We will see you all next week. Thanks, everybody.
bye.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.